forget what you've heard about Vietnam. Let's find out what it's really like.
Imagine an economy that, in the span of a few decades, catapulted from one of the poorest in Asia to a growth rate of 8.02% in 2022, outpacing even the giants like India and China. This isn't a hypothetical scenario, it's the reality of Vietnam. With a GDP per capita that increased nearly tenfold from under $300 in the 1980s to $2,800 in 2020.
Niece, nephew, auntie, uncle, it's the Horseshack of expat relocation.
Hey, Vinny, if you ever jumped off the George Washington Bridge, you'd leave a bathtub ring all around the Hudson River.
I'm here with my business partner from Ho Chi Minh City. We have a lot of important updates, lots of things changing in Vietnam, and we're going to try to bring it all to you today. My partner and I haven't done an update in a while, so we have an opportunity today to get you guys some new information on living, working, and doing business in Vietnam. Without further ado, I'm going to let him get started. Tell us about some of these major updates.
Hello, nice to meet you again. So it is the middle of the year 2024, and it's as a normal habit. It is a routine in Vietnam is that by the middle of the year, many of the laws will be applied, like the amended law on labor codes and social insurance, the amended clause on business, the amended clause on real estate. So today, with your purpose of working and living in Vietnam, we will have three main updates regarding the business incorporations, company establishment, the working conditions and work permit submissions in Vietnam, and the last one is about all of the visas that could be granted for the foreigner to live and work in Vietnam.
Great. So guys, things are ever changing in Vietnam, and that's why it's so important to have contacts that are local that can keep their thumb to what's going on, because as a foreigner, it's very difficult to know what's going on within the Vietnamese government. But if you have the right relationships, it makes this much easier. So feel free to reach us on the Facebook fan page if you're thinking about living, working, or doing any business in Vietnam. And I want to remind everybody, this video is brought to you by Safety Wing. And if you need reliable health insurance, definitely check them out. So let's talk, I guess, first about some of the changes to the work permit, because this is something that affects a lot of people.
Okay, yes. So if you heard about the new updates of the process for work permit submission and issuance, it's starting from last year, October, with the new decree no 70. So it makes the procedures like the verification of documentations for the work permit is much more stricter than before. So it makes things more difficult for even the employer and the employees to meet all of the requirements from the procedures of work permit submission. For example, from an employer like a school, English center, or a normal company, the labor department start to count the number of foreigners could work in a company or in a school. They will check everything before you can hire a foreigner to work, and the companies or the school has to explain the need of using more foreigners to work for them. Secondly, is for the employer, they have to provide the position. They need to use the foreigner, and the bachelor degrees, or we call the qualifications of a foreigner, needs to meet the requirement of that position. For example, if you are applying for an English teacher for a center, a language center, you just provide a teaching certificate and like TOEFL, TESOL, or TEFL. Yes, you can teach at a language center, but if you apply for a position of teacher like primary school teacher, kindergarten teacher, you need to provide a bachelor or diploma degree in education and training. So that is quite strict now.
Okay, so they've started to make it more difficult for these employers to just hire foreigners and pay facilitation money so that they can get them a work permit. What else are they doing around the work permit that makes the process more difficult?
Firstly, you have to remember that most of the procedure in Vietnam will be processed by a sponsor or the employer, not by the individual. So when before you reach to a recruiter from a school or a company, you have to ask a lot of questions for that recruiter. Which position they are hiring? Will they support you with the work permit process, or what type of documentation they require now for the working permit, because it is quite vary between cities and regions in Vietnam and between company to companies. So you have to understand and prepare all of the documentations per required by the labor department.
Okay, so it really just depends on the job.
Yes, correct. So for each position, like they are recruiting primary teacher, so beside the English certificate, then you have to provide the exact, for example, mathematics, physics, or other specific subject to teach in a primary school or a private school. But for English only, you need to not only provide the English teaching certificates like TESOL or TEFL, but also now we heard some news or some rumors saying that from 2025, if you want to teach in Vietnam, you need to attend a course and an examinations created by the Department of Examination, Ministry of Education. Then you get the certificate to teach in Vietnam. This is the rumor what we heard, and the Ministry of Education and Training, they build a system, but we don't know when it will be applied, or how does the certificate look like if you have to attend for a course and an examination, a test to teach in Vietnam.
Now, as I understand it, they're making it harder and harder for these companies to pay people under the table as well. What are they doing with taxation to try to prevent these teaching companies from just paying cash to the foreigners?
Well, according to the new updates and the request from the Prime Minister, so the tax department, they implement a lot of system, a lot of methodologies to, how to say, to measure and to check whether the tax report is real or not. Then all of the companies which are operating in Vietnam need to integrate their invoice system or the tax report, the tax software to the general department of tax. So it means we are in the period of computerization and centralization from the government. So I could make an example. Before, the school could pay you in cash, but due to some new regulation of accounting, auditing, and tax, so the government forced you to do the transfer more than before. So with the transfer recorded in the bank statement, the school or the company could not hide their income or the payment for the teacher. So they have to fulfill their obligations of the personal income tax payment for the foreigner, and also pay for the company income tax. So when you work with the company in Vietnam, you should ask the recruiter about the taxation policy, like about how to pay the PIT, personal income tax, how much they will have to pay, or how much the school should deduct from their salary. And by the end of the year, as a foreigner, you have to ask the school or the company to provide you with a tax deduction paper, because it will be the tax finalization evidence or proof for you.
And let's talk a little bit about the social insurance, because I know that's kind of a hot topic. Like, a lot of teachers are suddenly being forced to pay social insurance. A lot of company owners are suddenly having to address this issue. So I guess let's talk a little bit about what is the social insurance and how that works.
Okay, so before the foreigner, you could receive the high salary and pay for your private insurance, and you don't pay the attention to the compulsory social insurance. But according to the law, the foreigner who owes the work permit is subjected to pay for the compulsory social insurance, and it will be a share pay between the company, the employer, and the foreigner worker teachers. We call the employees. So there is percentage of the share pay between both sides to join the compulsory social insurance. For before, some companies or school, they process the work permits for the foreigner, but they don't want to pay for the social insurance for some reason. But from now, because everything is computerized, so when a work permit is issued, the government will know that there will be a new registration for the social insurance, and they will enforce the teachers, the workers, the foreigners, and the companies who hire them to pay for the compulsory social insurance.
So basically, this is something that has always existed, but the government's tried to implement it in a more strict kind of enforced way. And now the companies are just being forced to comply, but it's not really new. It's technically always been a thing. Now, if you pay for the social insurance, does the foreigner get access to the public health system?
Yes. So according to the laws, you have to join and pay the social insurance. Then you have the right to access all of the medical system of Vietnam, and even you could receive the retirement allowance when you stop working in Vietnam and leave Vietnam. So as I say, it is a combination of many actions that lead to the fact that the government is trying to control everything again. Before, they could not control it well, like you can have the work permit, but there are some techniques that the employer the school or the company will not pay for that, and because the foreigner, they don't pay the attention to this, so there's not so many reporting case to the government, and like they close their eyes, and sometimes we call that the government is blind for this subject. But when everything is come to the system, so you cannot change or avoid to pay what is belong to your obligations, or it is the government contribution.
So guys, for English teachers, for those of you who are going to be employed, which is going to be largely as an English teacher if you're working in Vietnam, you should make sure that it's very clearly understood who is going to be paying what and how that's going to work, how taxation is going to work. Just make sure everybody understands each other and you're all on the same page. As you guys can see, Vietnam is becoming more and more of an organized country. Little by little, a lot of the loopholes are closing. So if you are looking to come to Vietnam and solidify a position, sooner is definitely better than later. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the updates today? What else is going on in Vietnam?
Okay, so actually it is the new updates for those who pretend to open a company to sponsor for your long-term visa, the temporary resident card, the TRC. Before, you can have an agent which is using a shell companies or a domain company to sponsor for you. But there are a lot of risks to use a shell companies or the domain company to sponsor for your long-term visa. Firstly, there will be no one who do the monthly, quarterly tax report for you. So it's your company is very easily get noticed by the tax officer because you don't send any tax report. For a shell company, you think that you just have a company and everything is okay. When you have the TRC, it is no. The government could check, make a spot check any times for the company if you fail to provide the tax report or some of the government report on time, like the semi-annual foreigners working in the company. For example, for every 6 months, the company has to report to the government how many foreigners are currently working, how many foreigners are having the work permit, and how many still not waiting for the work permit. The government will, based on those reports, to check with the special department like the labor department, social insurance department, to cross-check with the company. And even for a company who is owned by a foreigners and you have the 2-year TRC, but according to the regulations on accounting and auditing, every year the company has to submit a audit report to the government, and also about the investment report to the government. So don't think that you just open a companies and get the TRCs and everything is done. No, you have to maintain your company situation and report. Also, for the company registrations, from 1st of July 2024, an agent has to verify their, do the verification when they do the company establishment or company opening for you. So an agent will be stick with you. For example, you open a company using ABC agents, and then you do something illegal with the company. So it will also make a negative impact on the ABC agent who know you, support you, have you to open a company.
Yeah, you had mentioned to me privately that I believe it was the Ministry of Public Security. Are they the ones who are overseeing this?
Yes, a news according to the laws, all of the government procedure need to be verified with the system of the public security. So this is a strange things in Vietnam like this. For example, in some country, especially for Western country, if an individual do something illegal, he will be arrested. But in Vietnam, they will trace to all of the root cause, like from the beginnings, who support you, who help you, who invite you, who sponsor for you. Because with the increase of the cyber security crimes and also the related foreigner related criminal issue, then the management for the foreigners in Vietnam will be enhanced, and there, I think, from my experience, there will be more strict rules to control the foreigner who is living and working in Vietnam.
So guys, just so you understand, what they're basically doing is they're disincentivizing anyone using a shell company, right? So what makes our service a little bit different is that we don't work with shell companies. We work with a legal loophole that allows you to purchase a company from a Vietnamese person. So the company that you're getting is a real company that has a tax record. So if it were to be checked or audited, it looks like a perfectly legal transaction. There's no law that restricts a foreigner from being able to own a Vietnamese company. So I feel like our method is far safer than what you might see in Facebook groups. You might see people saying TRC in 1 month and fast TRC, just pay the money. But what they're doing is they're getting you a shell company, and they're most likely not going to support you for maintaining this company. So it's kind of like, yeah, you'll get a TRC and a work permit, but there's also a chance that if you get investigated, you could lose all the money you put towards your project.
Yes, this is correct. Because, for example, you use a shell company to process for your work permit, but you don't pay for the compulsory social insurance. So after 3 months or 6 months, I'm confident that the officer will come to check for the company.
Another advantage to our service is that my partner here also includes the quarterly reporting for you. And that, that helps in the beginning when the company is first established. To make sure that just everything is up and running and the way it's supposed to be. And obviously, if you're happy with the service, then you can continue working with him for your TRC renewals and so on. It is very, very important, guys, to remember in Vietnam that just because somebody calls themselves a lawyer or somebody calls themselves a consultant, it doesn't really mean anything. I've met all kinds of agents, quote unquote, working out of tiny little workspaces or out of their parents' house and just functioning on Facebook groups and getting gullible foreigners to send them thousands and thousands of dollars. It's one of the reasons our business has done very well is we kind of try to provide a no BS. We don't sugarcoat things. We try to provide a clear pathway to achieving your objectives, and while at the same time keeping everything based in reality. So tell us more about what's going on. What's going on in terms of structuring the companies? Is there any other changes that are relevant that people should know?
Well, for the companies, as I told you, you have to, how to say, decide what is the purpose of open the company in Vietnam, and it is not only for the TRC, because the TRC, the temporary resident card, is issued based on your need, and you need to prove that you will work and contribute to the economy of Vietnam through the immigration. Then they will see the paper and give you the 2-year TRC, for example. But there are a lot of things to keep a company live. That's to sponsor for you. So, firstly, if you want to come to Vietnam as an investor, you should read a lot about how to about the laws on the business establishment and other related law, like the general clause 1 regarding the taxations, the accountings, the residence registration, for example, like the TRC, the visa, everything you need to gather before you decide to open a company in Vietnam. Even if it's just for retirement, you have some money, but it is not just one-time payment. If you want to live here, you need to keep the company live, and the company need to submit a lot of reports to the government to prove that it is a real company and it is still live. Relating to company, it is also about the visa. So for the e-visa, it's very easy for you to apply for the e-visa. But again, if you want to be an investor or to work in Vietnam, it is relating to the business visa and also about the working visa and TRC. So the first thing you need to know is that there are many types of visa, and it is very clear that if you come with an e-visa, it is very hard to turn it into a working visa in the future, because the purpose of e-visa is for tourism, not for work. So if you want to get the investor visa or TRC, it should be the first visa you need to rent is the business 3-month business visa instead of coming with the e-visa. Otherwise, you have to conduct another border run when your first visa, the e-visa, expire and turn it into a business visa.
So guys, let me clarify, this is one of those situations that is true for, a very long time in Vietnam. Even when I was there working as an English teacher years ago, it was essential to do a border run of some kind in order to get a return to Vietnam under a business visa. So for example, like when I first came to Vietnam, I had arrived on a tourist visa. I found someone to employ me, and I did a quick border run and returned on a business visa. Now, there's been periods where you've been able to change tourist visas to business visas. But, overall, the majority of the time that I spent in Vietnam, it was very difficult to do so. And now it's impossible. Now you need to cross a border. You need to go to a consulate in the neighboring country. And if you do end up having to do that and you're working with us, I'm very well connected in Cambodia, so I can support you from the border all the way to the embassy in Phnom Penh and back into Vietnam as well. So we can make that process a lot more simple for you with personalized drivers, and we can assist you at the border on both the Cambodia side and the Vietnamese side if there were to be any issues. And I also know the Vietnamese consulate in Cambodia very well, so we can advise you on that as well. But yeah, what my partner is getting at is that if you already are cooperating with somebody, it's much easier because then you can just enter the country straight away on a business visa that you can pick up at the embassy before you even decide to arrive, and save yourself the time and hassle of having to run to Cambodia and come back. But if you do just want to do everything in country, just know that there will be a border run.
Yes, it is true. Also, you will hear and find a lot of informations on the media on Facebook, and there are many agents which will give you some different or even conflict information regarding some procedure or regulations. So please try to do some small research when you receive some like consultations or information from any agents, because they could support you to speed up the process. They could support you to make it more convenient for you to get things done, but they could not change the laws. So even you want to pay for any service, you need to understand about the basic regulations and basic procedure regarding your purpose.
And remember, guys, like I said earlier, just because somebody in Vietnam calls themselves a lawyer doesn't mean it means the same thing that it would mean in the West, right? A lot of people have this misunderstanding about Vietnam. They assume that it's like Switzerland or like Canada or something. Vietnam operates in a very, very different way than the West. And it's important to remember that when you're going to go and start a company or find an employer, that the business culture, the attitude, everything is very different. The mindset is very different. So it's very important, if you are not knowledgeable on business culture and Vietnamese culture, to work with people that are. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on in Vietnam? You said there's some additional changes as well that you wanted to talk about.
Actually, the most change of Vietnam now is about the ways how the governments manage and control your activities, like the business activities, the companies, the work permit, everything. When we do the process, we have to do it online first, and the government will check everything and all of the informations connected to each other. You can call this is the big data from the government. So maybe in the future there will be not much human work like the normal ones, the hard copy, but everything will be digitalized, and it will be make, for some people it will be more convenient to do things digitally, but for the agents it will be a challenge, because as you can see, we sometimes we offer special service for some special case, and now if everything is just on the system, there will be not much special service anymore.
Right. So people are going to just have to go with whatever the bureaucracy is.
Yes. So I can make an example like the expedited visa. Currently, there is no policy for expedited visa. The government treat everyone fairly. Like actually, they will solve the submission one by one based on the time of the submission. For example, I submit before you, then my submission should be processed and give the result before your submission. But yeah, for some special case, the agents could connect with the government to fasten the process of the submissions. But maybe in the future, if the government pay more attention to this, and it's very hard for the officer to support some special case from the client.
Right. So basically, facilitation fees and coffee money are starting to become much more difficult.
Yes, well, you can say that for the purpose of prevent corruptions, the government trying to use many methodologies, and well, sometimes it's good, but if you are so strict, and you will lose the flexibility.
Yeah, and the flexibility is what made Vietnam's economy do well in the first place. Like when I first got to Vietnam, everything was very open. It was similar to Cambodia. It was very straightforward. You could buy 1-year visas. and Vietnam was exploding. The economy was just going through the roof. And since COVID, it's become very strict and very rigid, which has definitely had a negative effect on the economy. But once again, it's not really up to us. We just have to work within the guidelines that the government provides. So just be very weary of people who are just randomly posting in Facebook groups, making this sound like it's easier than it really is, guys. And I say the same thing when it comes to teaching. You need to forget the way you think about a job in the West, and you need to approach it with a completely different mindset, because the business culture, the Vietnamese culture in general, the mindset, it's very, very different than that from someone in the US, Canada, Australia. So, you have to kind of go with an open mind, and you have to work with people that know how to work within the bureaucracy. So I can say just from my experience working with clients this year that there's been a lot more auditing happening. There's been a lot more of the Vietnamese government checking companies, causing delays for some of our clients. Other clients, had no issues at all. Some clients, the government was very much like on them, but everything has turned out to be okay because we did everything legally. But regardless, guys, it means that they are looking and they are watching and they are auditing. So try to be aware of that. Can you tell us a little bit about what they're doing with the rentals? I know there was a period there where they were cracking down on the e-visas, and the police were doing a lot of checking of like accommodation that services foreigners. Is that still going on? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Okay, so actually, if you know that for nearly a year since Vietnam activates the 90 days e-visas, like compared to before the COVID times. Now the government reactivate it. So it is much more easier for the foreigners to come to Vietnam, like for some of their relative visitings, for tourism, for workings. But it also open a door for those who do the illegal working to come to Vietnam. Yeah, even for some of the sensitive or restricted nationalities, it still be easy as long as you did not violate the law or did not overstay in the past. So it's very easy for you to get a 90-day e-visa. But when you could come here, you do things illegal, like you are a good person before you have the visa and come to Vietnam. So when you come to Vietnam, you try to take advantage of the e-visa to stay here illegal or to do something illegal. Then the government is very strict on the fact that you need to register with the staying. Even that you hire an Airbnb place, you need also to ask whether the house managers or the landlord will do the registration for you or not. And if you forget to register your staying while you are having an e-visa, the next time you apply for an e-visa, the immigration officer could check and may reject your submission.
Right. So they're monitoring the registration closer than normal. Are they still doing spot checks? One of my clients, who was an English teacher, said that the police came by his house 2 different occasions. Both times his paperwork was fine, so it was no issue. But regardless, they still knocked on his door.
Firstly, it is the responsibilities of the police to come and check whether there is a foreigners or even a local but a stranger to come to stay in your area. And if you remember, for those years of COVID time, one of the success factor for Vietnam to manage and recover from the COVID is that the Vietnam government, they sleep the city and manage by the small area. So when there is exposure of the COVID, they just isolate that small area, and it will not affect the other areas. So with this structure of management, then when a stranger come to an area, or we call it in Vietnamese ward, come to stay in the homes, any house or hotel, the police know that there is a stranger to come, and because of the increasing criminal case relating to the foreigners, so it seems that the police now is quite sensitive to those foreigners. You understand my point? So they would pay you any visit or a spot check when you come to stay at a house in the area where they manage, because if there is any issue, they have to face with disciplinary action from their supervisor. So they very strict with the foreigner. So to actually for this case, it's very simple. Is that like as I told you, when a foreigners want to stay, you make a lease contract with the landlord, or you stay at any place. Please double check whether they do the registration for you. The resident or the staying registration. There is an online system for a long time, but people like they don't pay attention to that system, so it will lead to some consequences in the future. Like the next time you apply for an e-visa, there will be a high chance that you get rejected due to the last time you did not follow the laws and register your staying.
All right. So mainly the important thing is if they're working, then they should have their TRC or their documents related to that, their business visa, and they should be registered. If they're on a tourist visa, they just need to make sure that they're registered. But guys, don't be lazy about this stuff, because like just from my own personal experience, I lived in Vietnam for 6 years and I never was checked, but many of my clients were checked regularly. So, random knocks on the door at random times. And depending where you are, it definitely can be more frequent. I had clients that lived up in Ha Long City, and it wasn't as simple as a knock. They literally brought them down to the police station and interrogated them for hours. And then eventually everything was fine. They still let them go. But the moral of the story is some jurisdictions can be much stricter than others and can, monitor, foreigners in a much more stringent and controlled way. So where you live also can have an impact on, what it's like dealing with the local government, what it's like dealing with the local authorities. So generally for our clients, we recommend that if you're going to do any kind of business, it's better for you to stay in Saigon or stay in the South, just because the business culture is a little bit better down there. And the attitude of the Southern people is much more pro-foreigner than other parts of the country. But if you do want to have like a company branch in like Da Nang or in other parts of Vietnam, you can still do that. So if we established a company in Saigon and you wanted to live in Hoi An, for example, you would just have a Hoi An branch. So there is absolutely legal ways where you can live anywhere you want in Vietnam. It's just advised that dealing with the Southern government is a bit better. Is there any other points that you wanted to leave us with today? Just some final thoughts about what's going on in Vietnam?
Well, actually, it's all relating to how to say the final things all foreigner want to get is about a long-term visa, long-term staying, instead of keep doing the border runs. So for those workers, you should discuss with your employers to get the work permits by any means, because it will commit your long-term staying. And for those who like want a retirement, like you have planned to do business in Vietnam, but you just want to live for 1 or 2 years to understand about the market, about the business culture. So have your own company to sponsor for your staying and your long-term visa, instead of asking for a sponsor from a strange company or an agent, because at any time they can disappear and abandon you, and you could not do anything like even transfer to a new company by that time, because you get a bad mark for the first time.
Yeah, and once you look bad to the government, they keep records on all the foreigners. It may become much more difficult for you even to get an e-visa.
Yes, but the main purpose of e-visa is to grant the flexibilities for tourists. So if you plan for like working and living in Vietnam, an e-visa is not a good solution for you.
Yeah, and not to mention they can just change the rules on you at any time. I think it's important to remind people, I've been watching this now for, a pretty long time. I've watched all these policies change from before the pandemic, after the pandemic. And Vietnam at any moment could completely switch the rules around these visas. And all these people who are living on tourist visas suddenly could be in a real mess, right? So it is, if you're a serious person and you're serious about actually staying in Vietnam, it would be to your advantage to solidify your position. Now, that is going to require some startup capital, but once your company is up and running, it's basically just maintenance. You just need to make sure you're satisfying your compliance with the Vietnamese government, and renewing your TRCs or work permits as necessary. And it's really a great country, guys. I want to stress that even though there's a lot of headache and there's a lot of bureaucracy, some of my fondest memories, some of my best friends, some of my best experiences have been in Vietnam. It's a place that took me from being kind of immature and childlike and turned me into an adult. Vietnam changed my life in so many ways. I've lived all over Vietnam. I've spent most of my time in Saigon, but I've been to many of the other cities and spent time in them. It's a fantastic market, and it's going to take some time. The country is still developing, but it's a great place to have a position and to have yourself set up for the future. So don't let the bureaucracy scare you. Contact us if you need help. Reach us on the Facebook fan page or any of the contact information in the description below. Thank you for my partner for taking some time out of his day. He's a very, very busy guy. He runs a consultancy in Saigon, and he used to work for the Labor Department for many years. So he's a valuable insight into what's going on within Vietnamese bureaucracy. Be very skeptical of foreigners that are trying to go on YouTube and tell you it's this or it's that about Vietnam. You really want to hear it from a local person, and that's why we partner with local people. As you can see, my partner speaks English. He's relatively straightforward. He doesn't waste your time. He gives you the information you need to know. So this is the kind of person you're going to be working with and cooperating with. And guys, I'm going to tell you, man, the bureaucracy in Vietnam is no joke. I laughed when I was in Europe. I was in Albania, which is famous for terrible bureaucracy. And I experienced a little bit of it. And it's nothing compared to Vietnam. Vietnam is going to make your head spin. So having the right people to support you and tell you when it's time to freak out, when it's time not to freak out, when everything's okay, when everything's not okay, is absolutely essential. And I want to remind you guys, if you do end up working with us, please trust us and don't do things on your own. Cooperate and go anything that you want to do, you consult with us first. That's why you paid us. That's why we're here to help. And the reason I bring that up is because I have had clients in the past who've gone rogue, who didn't follow our advice, who've done things that they just want to do without checking with us first, and they've gotten themselves into a huge mess. So just remember, Vietnam is a great country. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a complicated bureaucracy, and it's very easy to make mistakes that can cost you a lot of time and money. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, share the videos, help us fight the algorithm. Once again, thank you to my partner for taking the time out. And if you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure to check us out. We're also on Facebook. We consult and can assist you in almost all the surrounding countries in Southeast Asia. We're building a relationship network down here in South Asia. I'm in India at the moment doing that. We're also going to be expanding further into Eastern Europe. At the moment, I have some good, strong relationships in the Balkans, as well as strong relationships in Italy, and I'm only going to be expanding. So, guys, we're taking our service global. And if you're the type of person who's entrepreneurial, you're looking to get a start, Vietnam's a great place. It's a huge market. You can earn money as a teacher while you try to get your business going. So don't be scared away by some of the issues. There's still a tremendous amount of opportunity in Vietnam. It still offers a great quality of life. I think even after all the changes, all the hassles, to me, it's still a place I'm very fond of spending time. So thank you once again for watching, and I hope you guys all have a great day.
Brush your face and wash your teeth, son.
Hey, what's up? I'm D from Canada. Hook up with the New York Nomad if you want a smooth ride into Vietnam or any Southeast Asian countries.
Hey, my name is Aaron. Get in contact with the New York Nomads. If you want to get into Vietnam, hit them up. They'll get you in securely and professionally.
Yo, this is Uncle Hollywood. I'm telling you right now, the New York Nomad got me a job. He's legit. Hit him up. Check him out.
New York Nomad set me up in Vietnam.
Yo, my man got me a job. Come to Vietnam.
Hey, what's up, guys? You thinking about coming to Vietnam? You're not sure where to start. You've heard a lot of things online. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. We offer a consulting service where we help you get on your feet in Vietnam. We give you advice on negotiating contracts with employers. We help you with real estate agents, visa agents that are reliable and that you can trust. We help you get started in this amazing country and get on your feet. We help you get into different opportunities that might be more difficult for you if you were just landing in the country on your own. And we help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems that you could have as a newcomer here. We provide provide you with reliable job recruiters, visa agents, real estate agents, and advice. If you guys are thinking about coming to Vietnam, hit us up for a consultation. We'll help you get started, help you get on your feet, and hopefully you'll love Vietnam as much as we do.